After a complicated surgery, I found out I couldn't have children. My husband didn't seem too upset at the time, and now I know why. Because he was already planning a baby with someone else. The truth hit me like an avalanche when I found an envelope in our mail. Inside was a pale blue card with tiny gold baby footprints. "Can't wait for you to meet our little boy this fall. Rachel." At first, I thought it was a mistake, a wrong address, a prank, maybe, until I saw the photo tucked inside the kind you get from one of those fancy private ultrasound studios. The kind with soft lighting and sepia tones, and someone's name and due date printed neatly at the top. It read, Rachel Lambert, due November 5th, father, Ethan Dawson, my husband's name. And just like that, the walls of my marriage began to crack. I didn't say anything right away. I just stood there, envelope in hand, while the refrigerator hummed behind me and the dog scratched lazily at her bed in the corner. The kind of silence that comes right before a thunderstorm. Ethan walked back in, holding his phone like it was a lifeline. "Did you open it?" My voice came out quieter than I expected. "She says the baby is yours." He blinked, just once, then gave a laugh so forced it made my teeth ache. "Oh, God. Eliza, you're not actually falling for that, are you?" I didn't answer. I just stared at him. "Rachel is... she's dramatic," he said. "She's always had this thing for me, even back in school. You know how women get." He waved a hand, like he was talking about a weather pattern. "I thought she was your client," I said slowly. "From the gym." He hesitated. That half-second pause told me everything. "She was," he said finally. "She is. Sort of. I gave her a few training sessions. She got clingy, started texting me weird stuff. I blocked her months ago." "Then how did she get our address?" He opened his mouth, then closed it again. His jaw clenched. "I don't know. Maybe she looked it up. People are crazy." I held up the ultrasound. "She put your name on it." Ethan leaned against the counter and ran a hand through his hair. "I knew this would happen. I told Leo at work this is exactly how women ruin men's lives. You so much as talk to them, and suddenly they're naming babies after you." I laughed then. A short, humorless sound. "That's your defense? You talked to her?" He stepped toward me. "Eliza, babe, you're overreacting. She's messing with you because she knows you're my wife. She's jealous." That word again. Overreacting. He'd been using it a lot lately. When I asked why he didn't come home until midnight on guys' night. When I noticed his cologne was different. Or the way he started hiding his phone face down on the dresser. When he flinched as I passed behind him and yanked his laptop screen closed. Paranoid. Emotional. Overreacting. "No more lies, Ethan," I said. My voice calm. "I'm not stupid. If you tell me the truth now, I might still have some respect for you." He looked at me with a kind of sad pity, like he was talking to someone with a head injury. "You need to calm down," he said, and that was the moment I knew. He wasn't going to confess. He was going to gaslight me until I forgot what the truth even felt like. But what he didn't know, what he never saw coming, was that while he was busy covering his tracks, I was already planning my next move. That night, I slept in the guest room. Not because I was angry, I was way past angry, but because I needed space to think, to breathe, to pull the pieces together. Ethan didn't try to follow me. He texted once from down the hall, "Let me know when you're ready to talk like adults," as if I'd been the one screaming. I stared at that message for a long time, then turned my phone face down. At 3:12 a.m. I got up and opened my laptop. I started with the obvious, her name, Rachel Lambert. She was easy to find. Instagram, Facebook, a LinkedIn profile that hadn't been updated in 2 years. Her most recent Instagram post was a sonogram pic, the same one from the card. The caption, "My miracle. Can't wait for November." She didn't tag Ethan, she didn't tag anyone, but the comments were full of heart emojis, and women saying things like, "He'll be such a good dad," and "You deserve this, Rachel." One stood out. "Proud of you for doing this alone. You don't need him." I clicked through to that woman's profile. Another trainer. Same gym. And just like that, the thread unraveled a little more. I took screenshots of everything. I didn't know yet what I'd do with them. But my gut, my nurse's instinct told me to start keeping records. Always trust your gut. That's what we tell new nurses during orientation. By sunrise, I had a full digital folder labeled Ethan Rachel Baby. Not very creative, but I wasn't exactly in a poetic mood. At 7:10, Ethan walked into the kitchen, freshly showered and acting like nothing had happened. He kissed me on the cheek, and when I didn't respond, he gave that performative sigh. "This again?" he muttered, grabbing the orange juice. "You're really gonna ruin another morning over a crazy girl with a baby fantasy?" I turned to him, calm as ever. "Take a paternity test." He froze, the bottle of juice halfway to the glass. "What?" "You heard me," I said. "If it's not yours, you have nothing to lose. So take one. Settle this," he scoffed. "I'm not feeding into her delusions. She's trying to manipulate us." "I thought she blocked you." I meant I blocked her. She kept finding ways to reach out. She's obsessed." "But you won't take a test?" I asked. "You won't prove me wrong?" Silence. A long, telling silence. "Unbelievable," he said finally, shaking his head. "I can't believe you're siding with some psycho over your own husband." And that was all the answer I needed. He wouldn't take the test because he already knew. I waited until he left for work. Then I opened the hidden file I kept tucked away in my notes app. A list I'd started months ago. A list titled, "If I ever need to leave Ethan." I added a new entry. Find a discreet DNA testing service. I didn't know what the future looked like yet, but I was done walking blind through this marriage. 2 days later, I pulled into a quiet neighborhood on the east side of town. Modest ranch-style houses lined the street, yards tidy but not extravagant. The kind of place people settle into when they're starting over or trying to. I sat in my car for a moment, my heart beating in my throat. This was not the kind of thing I ever imagined myself doing, showing up uninvited. But I couldn't keep spinning in the dark. I needed to look this woman in the eyes. I rang the doorbell. A dog barked somewhere inside. Light footsteps. Then the door opened. She was prettier than I expected, tired, but glowing in that way women sometimes do when they're carrying something bigger than themselves. Her blonde hair was pulled into a messy knot, and her eyes green, sharp narrowed slightly when she saw me. "Hi," I said, my voice steady. "You don't know me, but I think you know my husband." A pause, a flicker of recognition. Her eyes darted to my left hand, and when she saw the ring, her lips parted ever so slightly. "I'm Eliza Dawson," I said. "Ethan's wife." She didn't invite me in. Didn't slam the door either. Just stepped out onto the porch and pulled it closed behind her. "I figured he hadn't told you," she said quietly. I blinked. "So it's true?" Her shoulders sank like she'd been carrying a weight too long. "I'm not here to ruin anything," she said. I told him I'd keep it quiet. But I sent the card because I didn't want to lie to the baby. I looked at her for a long moment. Not angry. Not even sad. Just tired. Bone-deep tired. "How long?" I asked. She hesitated. "We met almost a year ago. He trained me for a few months. It started after that. He said you two were separated, that you lived in the same house for appearances." I let out a sharp breath. "Of course he did. I broke it off when I found out the truth," she said. "He begged me to keep it secret, said he'd figure it out. I haven't heard from him in weeks, but he knew about the baby." I nodded slowly. "And it's his?" She didn't flinch. "I've never been with anyone else." I studied her face. She wasn't lying. "I'm not here to blame you," I said. "But I need something from you. For me. For my sanity." Rachel raised an eyebrow. "I need a paternity test," I said. "If you'll agree to it, I'll pay." She folded her arms across her chest, then, after a long pause, gave the faintest nod. "Okay," she said. "I want to know for sure too." We exchanged information. I kept it businesslike, respectful. As I turned to go, she called after me. "He really said I was crazy?" she asked. I turned. "Yeah. Called you obsessed." She gave a bitter laugh. "That man begged me to have his baby. Said you couldn't. That I was giving him something you never would." The words hit like a slap. I didn't answer. I couldn't. I just got in my car and drove. I made it 5 blocks before I had to pull over and scream. Not because I was shocked, but because I had always feared that one day this exact moment would come, and now that it had, I realized how much I had been bracing for it all along. The test was done 2 weeks later, quietly, efficiently, with a mobile service that came to Rachel's house and collected a cheek swab. She paid her half. I paid mine. No lawyers. No drama. Ethan didn't know. I told him I needed space, claimed I was staying at my sister's for a few days. In reality, I was still at home, just in the guest room, watching him unravel one passive-aggressive breakfast at a time. He didn't ask many questions, probably thought I was cooling off. What he didn't realize was I'd already boiled over. I worked nights during that stretch, which gave me time during the day to go through everything. I scoured credit card bills, pulled text logs from our joint phone plan, and quietly gathered receipts from the fireproof box he never bothered to lock. I wasn't just preparing for a possible divorce. I was building a case. Then, on a Thursday morning, the email came in. Subject line: Paternity results confidential. My stomach dropped as I clicked. There, in bold at the top of the PDF. Probability of paternity: 99.9987. I stared at the number for a full minute, unmoving. It felt cold, mathematical, almost sterile. But there it was. Ethan was the father. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't paranoid. I was right. And instead of feeling destroyed, I felt ready. I forwarded the results to my private email, then again to a newly retained attorney I had quietly contacted a week prior. She specialized in complex divorce cases involving infidelity and asset concealment. Her reply came within 10 minutes. Let's set up a time to talk strategy. He won't know what hit him. I closed my laptop, walked down the hallway, and found Ethan in the living room watching one of those mindless shows where people scream at each other about broken furniture. He looked up. Hey, you feeling better? I smiled, small, polite, unreadable. Much. He grinned, smug, and patted the cushion next to him. Come sit, let's start over. I sat down. Not next to him, across from him. On the edge of the armchair, posture straight, hands folded in my lap. I have something to tell you, I said. He raised an eyebrow, oblivious. Yeah? I leaned forward, just a little. She's keeping the baby, I said. And the paternity test came back positive. His smile cracked. What test? The one she and I arranged, I said. Behind your back. Because I knew you'd never take one willingly. He stared at me, mouth open, speechless. I stood up and smoothed my scrubs. Don't worry. My lawyer has the full report. I sent her everything. Texts, receipts, phone records. Oh, and that video you accidentally recorded from your Apple Watch? That's a real gem. He looked like a child caught stealing cookies. Except this wasn't cookies. It was his entire life. You wait, what lawyer? I told you, I said with a calm smile. I'm not stupid. And I'm not staying. Ethan followed me down the hallway, stammering. Wait, Eliza. Eliza, can we talk about this? This doesn't have to be messy. Messy. He used that word like it was a stain on the rug, not a year-long affair that ended in a baby with someone else. I turned to face him at the bedroom door, cool as marble. We'll talk. Through my attorney. He blinked. You got a lawyer? Of course I did, I said. I got one the moment I found the ultrasound picture. You remember that card you tossed at me like junk mail? That was the beginning. He opened his mouth like he had something meaningful to say, then shut it again. I shut the door in his face. The next morning, I met with my lawyer, Naomi Fields, in a quiet office downtown. She was the kind of woman who wore pearls with combat boots. Calm, efficient, deadly when needed. She slid a thick file across the table. I've reviewed everything. You've built a better case than most private investigators. I smiled faintly. Nurses don't miss much. She tapped a page. With the paternity test, the documented affair, and your financial records showing he was shifting money from your joint account into a separate one last fall, we're in a strong position to file on grounds of adultery and financial misconduct. I nodded. She went on. We'll freeze the accounts first. File for exclusive occupancy of the home, since it was yours before marriage, and you're still paying the mortgage. And I'll file a motion to restrict him from bringing the child or Rachel onto the property. That stopped me. He's bringing her to the house? Naomi looked up. He hasn't yet. But you'd be surprised how bold some men get after the truth is out. I like to preempt arrogance. That's why I hired her. We reviewed everything. Assets, pensions, even my scrubby little Roth IRA he used to tease me about. She warned me it might get nasty, but that most narcissists collapse when the law steps in. Before I left, she gave me a line I'll never forget. You already did the hardest part, Eliza. You stopped believing his version of reality. When I got home that night, Ethan was at the kitchen table with takeout containers, and that same hopeful look he always wore when he was about to ask for forgiveness, without offering change. I made dinner, he said. Thought we could talk. I walked past him. Naomi's filing on Monday, I said over my shoulder. You'll be served at work. He pushed his chair back hard. That's cold, Eliza. I stopped and turned. You had unprotected intimacy with another woman while lying to my face for over a year. You didn't think that was cold? His mouth opened. And you let me believe I was paranoid, I said. You gaslit me, made me question my own instincts. So no, Ethan. You don't get to guilt me now. I went upstairs and left him alone with his lukewarm takeout and unearned remorse. The truth was, I felt warmer than I had in months. He was served 3 days later, just before lunch. Naomi timed it that way on purpose. Midday at the office is ideal, she'd said. Maximum witnesses, minimal wiggle room. Ethan texted me less than 5 minutes after the server handed him the envelope. What the hell is this? You blindsided me at work? I didn't respond. 10 minutes later, we can fix this, Eliza. You don't have to destroy everything we built over one mistake. One? He hadn't seen my quiet collection of digital breadcrumbs, hotel receipts, deleted Venmo transactions, call logs between him and Rachel that always took place after midnight. There were dozens of one mistakes. That evening, he came home pale and angry. You're freezing the accounts, he said. Slamming the front door like that would unfreeze anything. I stayed seated on the couch, sipping my tea. It's temporary, just until division of assets is sorted. That money is mine too. I set my mug down, calm as ice. Funny how that works. You didn't seem to think it was ours when you were Venmoing Rachel under the name Linda Dogwalker. His face dropped. Yes, Ethan, I found those. And before you ask, no, I didn't break into your phone. You left your email logged in on the iPad. Maybe next time don't use the same password for everything. He was breathing hard now, pacing. I didn't mean for it to go this far, he said. I panicked. When she told me she was pregnant, I didn't know what to do. I stood slowly. You had 12 months to figure it out. He leaned against the wall, suddenly deflated. I don't want to lose you. It was almost laughable. Lose me? He gave me away the second he chose a lie over loyalty. I'm not something to be lost, Ethan. I'm someone who walked away. His phone buzzed. He didn't check it. I did. The screen lit up with a text. Rachel. He has a fever. Should I take him to the ER? So she'd had the baby. Quietly. Probably alone. A flicker of guilt ran through me, and not for him. I turned away. You should go, I said. Looks like you're needed. He opened his mouth but for once found no words. Just silence. When the door closed behind him, I stood in the hallway and let myself feel everything. Grief, anger, relief, but most of all, peace. Because for the first time in over a year, I wasn't living in confusion. I was living in truth. That weekend, I walked through our home like a ghost, tracing her own outline. The framed wedding photo in the hallway, us on the beach in Cabo. Barefoot and glowing, I took it down. Not in rage, not to smash it dramatically like some movie scene. Just quietly. I wrapped it in an old towel and tucked it into a box labeled Things That Used to Matter. What haunted me most wasn't the betrayal itself. It was how close I'd come to becoming a shell of the woman I used to be. I'd started dimming my light months ago, stopped bringing up things that upset me, avoided asking questions I knew he'd dodge. I even stopped inviting friends over because I didn't want anyone to notice how thin the smiles had gotten between us. Looking back, it was like living in a house where a carbon monoxide leak was slowly draining the oxygen, and I kept blaming myself for feeling lightheaded. I scrolled through old texts between me and Ethan from a year ago. Me, you okay? You've been distant lately. Ethan, you're imagining things, babe. Work's just insane. Me, you sure? You seem different. Ethan, here we go again. Always looking for problems. That was the pattern. I asked for clarity. He offered gaslight. I opened a journal I hadn't touched in months and wrote, he was never confused, just comfortable. And comfort is where cowards hide. The doorbell rang around 2 p.m. It was Jenna, my best friend, my anchor, the one who had been suspicious since Ethan forgot my birthday dinner last year and blamed it on his calendar app. She stepped inside, took one look at the cleared-out photo wall, and said, "You ready to burn it down?" I laughed for the first time in days. Not yet, but I'm done building it back for him. We sat on the couch with wine and no filters. "Do you know how many women never get out?" Jenna asked quietly. "How many stay and shrink and eventually believe they deserved it?" I nodded. I almost became one, but I didn't. And that mattered. Because there is nothing more dangerous than a woman who finds her footing after being told the ground wasn't real. It was the middle of my shift when the message came through one soft buzz on my phone during my 5-minute break in the staff lounge. Rachel Lambert. "Hi. I know this is probably weird, but do you have a minute to talk?" I stared at it for a long time. Not angry, just cautious. This woman had been the catalyst to everything unraveling, but she hadn't lied to me. That had been Ethan's department. Rachel, at least, had the decency to step into the light when I knocked on her door. I messaged back, "I have 15 minutes. Call if you want." She called in less than 30 seconds. "Hi," she said, voice soft, like she wasn't sure how to be heard. "Hey," I replied. Then silence, a shared breath. "He's been coming around," she finally said. "To see the baby." "Okay, but not for the baby," she added. "He talks more about you than anything." I raised my eyebrows. "He's obsessed with fixing things," she continued. "Not because he's sorry, just because he hates losing." That tracked. Ethan didn't apologize. He negotiated. "I didn't call to drag you into it," Rachel said. I don't know. I guess I wanted you to know you weren't crazy. Everything you felt, it was real." I exhaled. A long, quiet breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding for months. "I appreciate that," I said. "I really do." Another pause. "He told me once," Rachel said, voice quieter now, "that you were lucky he stayed with you after you had your surgery." My blood ran cold. 3 years ago, I had a minor procedure to remove uterine fibroids. Outpatient. No complications. But the doctor had warned, it might make pregnancy difficult. I remember crying over that in bed, and Ethan had held me and whispered, "We'll figure it out. I'm not going anywhere." So he had weaponized even that. "I'm sorry," Rachel said, "that I believed him when he said you were distant, cold, controlling." "He always said that about me," I replied, to anyone who threatened to see me clearly. A long silence followed. Then she said the last thing I expected. "I'm moving. My sister's in Ohio, and she offered me space to reset. I'm taking it. I don't want him around my son." I wanted you to know that too. Something softened in me. Not forgiveness, but recognition. She wasn't my enemy. We were both just collateral damage from the same self-serving man. "I hope it's a beautiful reset," I told her honestly. She exhaled, like she hadn't expected kindness. Then, "You deserve better." He never saw it. I ended the call with tears quietly slipping down my cheeks, not for him. For me. For the years I'd spent being unseen by the one person who was supposed to know me best. But that was over now. Because someone finally saw me, and it was me. Ethan showed up at my door the night before our first court hearing. He was holding flowers, cheap ones, the kind you grab last minute from the grocery store. His shirt was wrinkled, eyes bloodshot. He looked like a man who hadn't slept, or more accurately, a man who finally realized he was no longer in control. "I just want to talk," he said. I didn't open the door all the way. I stepped outside, pulling it shut behind me. That was my boundary now. He didn't get to stand in the house he tried to ruin. He handed me the flowers. I didn't take them. "Eliza, this doesn't have to go through court," he said. "We could settle everything privately. We don't need lawyers in our business." "You mean in my business?" I said, folding my arms. "Because this isn't a negotiation, Ethan. This is the consequence of your choices." He ran a hand down his face. "Come on. Don't do this. You know I never meant for things to go this far." "But they did go this far," I said. "You kept lying. You let me believe I was losing my mind. You humiliated me." He gestured weakly with the flowers. "We were good once." "No," I said softly. "I was good. You were comfortable. There's a difference." His shoulders dropped. I made a mistake. I stepped closer, lowered my voice. You made a series of decisions. And now, we're done. You don't want lawyers involved because mine knows the value of what I brought into this marriage. He looked up sharply. You're trying to take everything. I'm protecting myself. You don't get to cheat on me, father a child with another woman, lie for months, and then cry foul when I refuse to play nice. He reached out like he wanted to touch me. I stepped back. You said once that I was lucky you stayed after my surgery, I said. That I should be grateful. You said it to me and to her. The flicker of guilt on his face told me Rachel had been honest. I nodded, eyes never leaving his. You want to know what I'm grateful for, Ethan? I'm grateful I'll never have to hear that kind of cruelty again from someone who pretended to love me. He didn't have a comeback for that. He stood on my porch for another full minute, holding those pathetic flowers, before finally turning and walking back to his car. I watched him go without a single tear, because tomorrow, I'd be standing in front of a judge, not as a broken wife, but as a woman with evidence, a lawyer who respected her, and no more patience for lies. And for the first time in years, I was looking forward to what came next. Court was quiet that morning, sterile and humming, with low voices and shoes squeaking on polished floors. I sat beside Naomi in a gray pantsuit I'd chosen carefully. No flashy colors, no soft pastels, just sharp lines and calm confidence. Ethan walked in 5 minutes late. His tie was crooked, and his lawyer, a tired-looking man in an ill-fitting blazer, was whispering furiously at him before they even made it to the front. Naomi leaned toward me and murmured, "He didn't take this seriously." Good. I didn't nod, didn't smirk. I just exhaled and waited. When our case was called, we stepped up to the bench. The judge, a woman in her 60s, with silver hair and sharp eyes, glanced at the file, then up at us. "Mrs. Dawson," she said to me first, "your petition outlines financial misconduct, adultery, and emotional distress. Your lawyer submitted detailed documentation to support your claims. Is there anything you'd like to add before we proceed?" I looked at her steady, clear-eyed. "Yes, Your Honor," I said, my voice firm but not cruel. "I believed I was in a partnership. I was wrong. But I'm not here today as a victim. I'm here to protect what I've built, and to end this marriage with the dignity I didn't receive in it." The judge didn't blink, just nodded. Ethan's lawyer stood, clearing his throat. "Your Honor, my client admits there were missteps, but he contends that the business assets should be considered shared property. He also disputes the freezing of the joint account." Naomi stood up slowly. "Your Honor, the business in question, a Wellness Consulting LLC, was registered to Mrs. Dawson 2 years before the marriage. She maintained independent accounts, filed separate taxes, and even excluded Mr. Dawson as a beneficiary. We've submitted all relevant documentation, including screenshots of Mr. Dawson's Venmo transactions, using deception to transfer marital funds to a third party." The judge's eyebrows raised ever so slightly. "Did you refer to those payments as dog walking services?" she asked Ethan dryly. Ethan's lawyer shuffled papers. "That language was symbolic." Naomi raised one eyebrow. "Of betrayal, perhaps." A soft chuckle rippled from the gallery. The judge held up her hand, silencing the room. "I've seen enough," she said. "The evidence is clear. Temporary spousal support is denied. Joint accounts will remain frozen until assets are divided. Mrs. Dawson retains ownership of her business and any premarital property." Ethan looked stunned. The judge continued, "Furthermore, Mr. Dawson is to have no contact with the petitioner outside legal counsel. If any violations occur, I'll be more than happy to revisit the matter with stronger restrictions." He opened his mouth, closed it. Naomi placed a hand gently on mine under the table. It was done. For now. Outside the courtroom, Ethan tried to intercept me. "Eliza, wait, can we at least talk?" I didn't stop walking. "There's nothing left to say." He followed me for a few paces, calling my name. Naomi turned sharply. "Don't." He stopped. I kept walking. Out of the courthouse. Into the sun. No applause. No music swelling behind me. Just the sound of my own steps, confident, free. It started with a message request on Facebook. A woman named Tessa, profile picture of her holding a yoga mat and a labradoodle, sent a short, cautious note. "Hi, Eliza. I hope this isn't inappropriate, but I used to train with Ethan a while back. I heard what happened, and I think you should know. He wasn't faithful to you even before Rachel. I stared at it, heart oddly calm. No spike of shock. Just a slow, bitter nod to myself. Of course. I replied, "Thank you for reaching out. Would you be willing to talk to my lawyer?" Tessa answered within minutes. "Absolutely. I've kept the messages. I always thought something felt off about him. I'm sorry I didn't come forward sooner." That same day, another email came through, this time from a name I didn't recognize. Subject: I was one of them. "I'm so sorry." The message was long, rambling, apologetic. A woman from Ethan's old gym. Someone he flirted with under the guise of confidence coaching. She didn't know he was married. When she found out, she ended it immediately. "I just wanted to tell you," she wrote, "you weren't crazy. You were just lied to." I sat there in the quiet, rereading that line. You weren't crazy. You were just lied to. I forwarded everything to Naomi. She called me that night. "If we want to, we can file an amendment to the petition." The pattern of behavior could point to ongoing emotional manipulation. I thought about it, long and hard. But in the end, I said no. "I don't want to stretch this out," I told her. "I don't want more court dates. I just want it to be done." She paused. "You're sure?" "Yes," I said. "The women coming forward? That's enough. That's the closure." Because now the truth had a face, multiple faces. And Ethan? His armor of secrecy was cracking in public. He had always counted on my silence, my dignity, the way I'd protect him even while bleeding. But now? His reputation at the gym was toast. Rachel had moved. The women he'd charmed were no longer keeping his secrets. And I had no interest in playing the quiet, discarded wife. A week later, I found out he'd been let go from the gym. "Conduct unbecoming," the manager said when I called off the record, of course. I hung up and looked at myself in the mirror. Not smug, not gloating, just solid, steady, unbreakable. Because when a man builds his identity on deception, it only takes truth to burn the whole thing down. The last time I sat across from Ethan was in the mediation room at Naomi's firm. No judge, no courtroom. Just a long oak table, 2 lawyers, 2 water pitchers, and the ruins of a man who once swore he'd love me forever. He looked smaller, not in stature, but in presence. Like the threads of control he'd wrapped himself in had all unraveled, and now he was just a man caught in the draft of his own destruction. He tried to start with charm. "Hey," he said, "like we were meeting at a cafe, you look good." I didn't respond. Naomi didn't even blink. We got right to it. She laid out the settlement agreement like it was a chessboard. Calm, precise, no gaps. I would retain full ownership of my business. The house, my house, would be refinanced into my name, with Ethan forfeiting any claim. The remainder of the joint assets, after adjustments for the money he siphoned and spent on Rachel, would be split 7,030 in my favor. He balked. 70? Come on, Eliza. That's not fair. Naomi slid a document forward. That's the financial misconduct figure. Documented and matched to the Venmo transfers, unreported cash withdrawals, and credit card charges made at hotels under aliases. We could go to court, Ethan, and we'd win. This is your deal. He looked at me, desperate now. Don't do this. You're better than this. I smiled. Just a little. No, Ethan. I'm exactly this. I'm just finally using the strength I used to waste protecting you. He sank back in his chair. There was a long, stunned silence. Then, "You don't even care anymore, do you?" I met his eyes for the last time. "I care," I said quietly, "but not about you. I care about the woman I used to be, the one who begged you for honesty and got gaslighted instead, the one who curled up crying after your coldness and still made you dinner, the one who stayed too long because she thought marriage meant swallowing herself whole." His face shifted anger, then regret, then something closer to resignation. Naomi slid the final page toward him. He signed. Just like that, it was done. No applause, no slamming gavel, just the soft, certain scratch of ink on paper and a weight I didn't realize I'd been carrying leaving my body. When he left, I stayed behind. Naomi touched my shoulder. "You did this," she said. "You brought it all to light." I nodded. I didn't need to say anything. I felt it. For the first time in years, my life was mine.